Welcome, bumbling French inspectors, to Geek Salad's Retro Movie Review. Yeah, from the Geek Salad Podcast. I'm Andy.
And I'm Mike.
And tonight we are going to start the month with some blind spots. Movies that we have not yet reviewed on this. Some movies that we feel kind of need some attention. Yeah. And I believe, they're all comedies.
Yes.
We're going to be hitting comedies this month.
Yeah, well, I mean, technically next month because it's for September and this is August 31st. But we kind of figured that, you know what, with Halloween going to be horror themed, we might as well get some laughs out first.
Yeah, exactly. And tonight we are covering the 1963 release of The Pink Panther.
Yes, the original Peter Sellers classic.
Yes. So let me ask you a question, because I know you're kind of like, you're literally finishing this up right now.
I've seen this before,
right?
But I've literally got the finale, the last, like, how long is it? I've got 3 minutes and 9 seconds left of the movie to go.
Right, and this is a 1960s movie, so you've seen all the credits already.
Yeah, but
they just kind of cut to the released by United Artists, MGM, and that's about it.
As I've said, I have seen this before, so I know what happens.
Right. When was the last time you actually watched this movie?
Probably about 20 years ago. You know, back in my later college days, I was kind of on a kick of watching a lot of classics. That's why I watched like Citizen Kane for the first time, Casablanca, Pink Panther.
Yeah. I believe I must have been like 7 or 8 years old when I first saw this movie, and it was on like channel 56. One of our local UHF channels used to have an evening movie, like a primetime movie. And
was it Dana Hershey?
Dana Hershey, no, he was
or was he 38?
I think Dana Hershey was 38.
Okay.
But so I had like a vague notion of this movie. I mean, I know of the character of Clouseau. I know of the Pink Panther. There's a really great cartoon that was made in like the 60s.
Yeah.
That was fully.
I've just got the finale on here, and I think the most impressive thing is that they were able to fit 3 people in that compact car.
Yes, exactly. Those very, very European compact cars.
Yeah, they're about this big, and they've got 3 people sitting next to each other.
Hey, they're small enough to actually get down a narrow staircase.
Yeah.
I've learned anything from James Bond. It's that.
That is a tiny car, too.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me. So my memory is fleeting. This, I don't remember the movie being what I ended up watching this week.
Yeah. Kind of the same thing. I remember watching it before, but I like beyond like the major plot point, a lot of the major plot points, I didn't really remember a whole lot about it. And I had expected it to be a lot funnier than it actually was.
Yeah.
Outside of Peter Sellers, there were, I mean, and honestly, the Masquerade Ball and the Following Chase.
Yeah.
Outside of those, there aren't a whole lot of laughs in the movie.
No, it's what's very interesting about this movie is that it sets up the character of Clouseau, even though Clouseau's a side character in this movie.
Big time.
Yeah. This is David Niven's movie.
Oh yeah, David Niven David Niven, absolutely. Even Robert Wagner, yeah,
Robert Wagner. So weird seeing him young.
Yeah, I thought he'd always been like over like 60, and no, he's like 30 in this one.
Yeah, but he's it's interesting. Well, first of all, what was interesting to me first off is that the Sellers Niven playoff, the same thing that they did with Casino Royale. But also just this movie sets up. You would not believe what this movie sets up in terms of the following sequels, because if you really want to break it down, A Shot in the Dark is really where you get Clouseau being Clouseau. You know, does your dog bat? Clouseau.
Yeah, and this one, Clouseau, I mean, he's a little naive, but for the most part, he's actually a pretty competent detective.
Yeah, I mean, there are times when he does, fail horribly.
Yeah.
But the weird thing about this movie is that it is more of just like a 60s sex comedy.
Yeah.
Than it is anything else, really.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times I'm watching this one. I just want to say, Mr. Wagner, no means no.
Yeah.
Wow, that would not fly now.
No, God, no. Nor should it.
No. He's pretty much forcing himself on Mrs. Clouseau, played by Capuchin.
Capuchin, yeah.
Capuchin, yeah.
It's just the whole thing was a little weird too, because like when they're like, "Oh, your wife is waiting outside," I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. And I had to find it out, so I looked it up. Yeah, David Niven, playing Sir Charles Lytton, and macking on Princess Dalla, played by Claudia Cardinal, 28 years older. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what though? That's that kind of thing that happened. It was kind of a normal thing to happen in the 50s and 60s.
I mean, hell, I think that's even older than Sir Roger Moore was over Tanya Roberts.
Maybe.
I want to say that they were only about like 26 years apart.
Okay. All I know is that he was as old as her mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just really is a crazy movie because it isn't as madcap and zany as it would become. And, to be clear, some of those later Sellers Pink Panther sequels are not great at all.
I've seen clips. I honestly, this is the only one I've actually seen all the way through. But I've seen the whole like "Does your dog bite?" scene.
Yeah,
that's just hilarious.
That's not. Well, the thing is too. The first thing I remembered from the Pink Panther is when they, at the very beginning, when they're showing all the things about the Phantom, and you're introduced to Clouseau for the first time, and he spins the globe and says, "We must find that woman," and he puts his hand on it and just slides right off. That has always stuck with me because this movie, I feel like, deservedly should have been Peter Sellers' movie, and obviously he's the one who walks away with the entire series afterwards. But it doesn't really take shape until A Shot in the Dark.
No,
but it's easier to call these movies the Pink Panther movies because that character became so iconic to this.
Yeah, I believe animated by Fritz Freleng.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, and honestly, in this movie, David Niven was probably the bigger star at the time, but Peter Sellers steals every scene he's in.
Oh, he does. He absolutely does. He's fantastic in it. In fact, it's just like the movie comes to life when he's in it and he's doing his Clouseau things.
Yeah, whenever he's not in the movie, I was like, I'm just waiting for the next laugh, and I'm not getting him.
Yeah, it's just shocking to me because Blake Edwards is a very good, like, comedic director. Obviously the most iconic thing of this movie is its score, the Henry Mancini score.
Oh, so good.
It's perfect. It's perfect capering music.
Yeah.
Which is what fits. And I feel like that's why they continued with the series being the Pink Panther series featuring Inspector Clouseau.
Yeah.
After A Shot in the Dark, which comes out a year later and really allowed Sellers to more embellish the accent and all that. And, again, that's the bet.
Yeah. I also want to look up here. Do you know when the Pink Panther animated series began?
I want to say mid to late 60s. I watched it, it was in syndication when I was about 10 years old because I used to watch it like crazy. But yeah, it was Fritz Freleng who was the animating director on them.
Yeah, it looks like, honestly, the next year they started making they started making the first Pink Panther cartoons,
Okay.
and then they just continued through 65, 66. So even when they weren't making, well, because when did Shot in the Dark come out?
64. It's the
All
very
right.
next year.
Yes, so it looks like they did the Pink Panther, and people loved that animated Pink Panther, and they loved David's Peter Sellers as Clouseau. So the next year they made a movie starring Clouseau, and then they made an animated series of shorts starring the Pink
Yep.
Panther.
And then brought it back to in the Return of the Pink Panther.
Yeah, so they just took the two things that everybody loved most about the movie and spun them off into their own things.
Yeah. What's weird about the whole series too, if you go and you look at these movies. So first of all, I'm like going into the list right now. The Pink Panther movies, 69 was the Pink Panther show.
Okay, the show, yeah, they had done some series of like some short films, animated
Yeah.
films about the Pink Panther, yeah. But thanks, Kurt. Thank you.
But yes, thank you for clarifying that, because looking at IMDb right now, you don't get another proper Pink Panther movie until 1975
Really?
with Return of the Pink Panther.
Oh yes, because also did that weird Inspector Clouseau movie that
So
had
yeah, and that's what I want to touch on too, is that the character of Clouseau has never been uniquely a Peter Sellers character as well, because when Blake Edwards, Peter Sellers, and Henry Mancini refused to come back for another Clouseau movie, they made a Clouseau movie with Alan Arkin.
Yeah. I mean, Alan Arkin's a fine actor, but he can't do comedy like Peter Sellers.
Yeah. So you're going, and these were released annually practically. So the Return of the Pink Panther is 75. The Pink Panther Strikes Again is 76. Revenge of the Pink Panther is 78. And then Trail of the Pink Panther is 82. After that, Peter Sellers died in, I think, Peter Sellers died in 80 or 81. In fact, I'm going to double check that right now.
So the last
he died
one
July 24th, 1980.
The last one would have been posthumous then.
It would have been posthumous. It's a tribute film. So essentially what I think they did was like they did like fill-ins and stuff like that. He was already dead. They had some scenes shot, so they kind of like they worked around him like Bela Lugosi in Plan 9 from Outer Space. And then in 1984, there's Curse of the Pink Panther, where they have another inspector trying to find Clouseau. This was released in 1983 and starred
Ted Wass.
And most of the cast comes back though. I'm not sure exactly. I've never seen that one.
Yeah. Well, I pulled up here. They did bring back David Niven, Robert Wagner, Capuchin, and they had Robert Loggia.
Yep, look out below you.
Oh wow, they did have Clouseau in that one, played by Sir Roger Moore.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
And then in 1993, Son of the Pink Panther with Roberto Benigni.
Yeah, that's just
you already know it's unfunny and a slap in the face of decent comedy.
Yeah.
And then in 06, Steve Martin took on the mantle of Clouseau. So, but the thing is, though, is that everything has been a pale imitation of Peter Sellers.
Yeah. I will say I did watch the first Steve Martin Pink Panther. I didn't hate it. I mean, it certainly wasn't. He didn't. I mean, if you got to have a runner-up for Peter Sellers, Steve Martin is not a bad way to go.
Yeah, I just feel because Steve Martin's face is so just like Steve Martin.
Yeah.
Slapping a silly mustache on him and giving him the accent, it doesn't work because Steve Martin is not the type of actor who can really disappear into roles. I mean, there's some roles he can. Orin Scrivello in Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, yeah.
He can disappear into that. But for the most part, he's just Steve Martin playing Steve Martin.
Yeah. But I still had a little. I didn't
Yeah,
hate it.
yeah.
But again, it has been a while since I've watched it.
Movie came out almost 20 years ago.
And that's about the last time I saw it.
Yeah. But it's just crazy to me because again, this movie is landmark of movie comedy, yet it's not that funny. But it launches the genius of Peter Sellers. Could have worked if they cared about the source material, but the studio didn't care. Why doesn't Johnny care?
Yeah, the first half of this movie is I was struggling to care about any of the characters,
Right.
and like the first like 10 minutes, it jumps from scene to scene to scene to scene, introducing all these characters, but showing no link between any of them.
Right, and that's the thing though with ensemble movies of this era. There's a lot of globe hopping until you land on your final set piece, which in this case is the ski lodge.
Yeah.
But it just really this felt more, and reading the trivia on IMDb, this was supposed to be a vehicle for David Niven to launch his Gentleman Thief series, which just never came about because the audiences responded and wanted more Clouseau.
Yeah. Another thing I'm not the biggest fan of in a lot of 60s movies, I've even seen this in some James Bond movies, is that they just let the scenes kind of like peter out.
Yeah.
They don't cut. They just like a slow fade. Like, okay, there's the end of the scene. And now we're on the next scene.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's almost like very little crossfade. The other thing too is just like you'd think by this point in the 60 plus years of filmmaking that had already occurred, they would have had a better like car mounting rig.
Yeah.
Because there's only so many rear projection scenes of driving you can watch in a movie.
Yeah. And they're very rarely done where you don't notice them.
Yeah. I mean, the long and the short of this, I didn't hate this movie.
No.
But for some reason, it was just like, I wasn't expecting this. Yeah. I was expecting it to be more zany and madcap and way more physical comedy than we got. Yeah. The bedroom scene had some, like when all three of them are just like kind of coming back in and out of the bedroom, and Capuchin is just like, oh, 1 moment. Yeah. That was fun. And when it works, it works. But when it doesn't, it's a slog.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it honestly, and I hate to say it because it's in the last like 20 minutes of the movie, but when you hit the masquerade ball at the end,
yeah,
then you had some of the more physical comedies and the whole chase at the end. That's what I was expecting for the whole movie.
Right.
I mean, just seeing that guy just walk across the square and just seeing all the cars, and then you see the two cops and the zebra just running through. I was like, okay, I wanted more of that, and I got less of that.
And I feel like you get more of that as you go through the Clouseau.
Yes.
I really need to watch Shot in the Dark again because
I've heard that's the best.
Yeah, it's legitimately been decades since I watched it, and it was like kind of passive viewing. I almost feel the weird thing about A Shot in the Dark is also it's almost like the Never Say Never Again of the Clouseau series. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, it's still made by the same people, distributed by the same studio, but because it doesn't carry the Pink Panther name to it, it's got that feel that it is the unspoken redheaded stepchild of the series.
Yeah. Technically everything that you know about the Pink Panther series started in that one, not the Pink Panther.
Exactly. And it's just the weird thing too about the Pink Panther itself is that it's a diamond that makes an appearance at the very beginning with a lot of people and way too much brown face. Just leave it alone. It was a different era.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had a lot of Europeans
Yeah.
playing Southeast Asian people. It's okay.
Yeah, and Princess Dala, played by an Italian actress.
Yep. Even her manservant was like, "Oh, come on."
Yeah, yeah. Who
But
was he anyway?
what's that?
Oh, there we go. The guy was played by James Lanphier. Oh, from Mitchell Field, New York. Take that what you will.
Yeah, I really like now watch. I'm gonna watch A Shot in the Dark, and it's gonna be like, this is what I wanted the Pink Panther to be.
Yeah.
It's just the weirdest part about the whole calling the diamond the Pink Panther is like it's kind of cute
Yeah.
to do that. I like that was the thing, even though that piece of jewelry plays in the very beginning and at the very end.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. Other than that, the Pink Panther, literally the title of the movie is nothing more than MacGuffin.
Yeah. Exactly. Which, I can kind of understand, but at the same time, I feel like the name sticks also because that audiences responded to that piece of animation.
Yeah.
They really enjoyed that animation, and that really, that's why we continue to refer to these as the Pink Panther series, even though they are the Clouseau series.
Yeah, without the animated Pink Panther, this series is not called the Pink Panther.
Yeah, exactly. It's David Niven.
Yeah,
Gentleman Thief.
Or Clouseau.
Well, I have stolen. Well, dear Springfield, I have stolen all your belongings. You good people have stolen my heart. Aww.
Was he voiced by David Niven?
No, David Niven was dead by that point.
Oh,
it was
really?
Sam Neill who voiced that character.
Oh. Well, at this point, I'm just kind of curious. When did David Niven die?
Well, I can pull that up on IMDb. Let's see.
I got it. 83.
83. Okay, so it's entirely possible he showed up in the tail.
He showed up in Trail of the Pink Panther and Curse of the Pink Panther, but for some reason he didn't do his own voice. Rich Little did his voice.
Very old. I want to say David Niven. I think he might have died of Lou Gehrig's.
Oh.
I'm taking a look right now.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Sir Charles Litton did appear in Return of the Pink Panther, but not played by David Niven. Instead, he was played by Christopher Plummer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he died of ALS.
Yeah.
Lou Gehrig's disease.
Which would explain why he had to be voiced and dubbed by Rich Little. I'm sure his voice was not up to snuff.
Man, that was your go-to for voiceovers back then for somebody who vaguely sounded like
everybody.
Everybody. Yeah, exactly. Yes, Rich. We all know. I can do a Bogart impression myself, But yeah, I don't really know what else I could say about this movie other than I wish it was funnier.
Yeah.
I wish it was more of a Clouseau vehicle. I really do.
I think the first laugh I got out of David Niven was after he had fallen into that snowbank outside his room, and he had all those Rich. He just walks out of the snowbank, says good night, and walks past him. That was the first chuckle I got out of David Niven's character.
Yeah, that's funny too, because you never think of Academy Award-winning effete British actor David Niven as being funny, but he actually did manage to carry his own in a lot of these 60s comedies. And that's the thing about the Masquerade Party, There's also that dance kind of like in the halfway point when you get a break for a musical number.
Oh yeah, I actually fast forwarded through that part because I was like, "Is this over yet?" Nope. Keep going. Keep going.
Just keeps going, but it's so 60s.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, okay, we need a music break. Okay, well here's some fuzzy guitar. Here's a lot of hip swinging around, and
again, once again, Peter Sellers saves that moment because he's like just like doing a little bit of weird dance that's like, okay, this guy's got no rhythm, but it's fun to watch him.
Exactly. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Strawberry Alarm Clock. So,
yeah, I was expecting a much different movie than we ended up getting, especially given like David Niven had some comedic chops. Robert Wagner, I don't remember him having too many comedic movies, but he was hilarious in Austin Powers.
Yes, I was just going to say he has his moments of being very, very funny.
Yeah. And directed by
Blake Edwards. He didn't age. That you saw that. I didn't even look at IMDb first. Like,
yeah.
I'm like that meme of DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm like Robert Wagner. And then Capuchin, who lived a sad life. Reading her biography is very, very sad. But
yeah, and then she like decided to take a jump from her 8th story apartment.
Yeah, but she's about as, God help me for saying this because I know it's a sign of the times of 1960s filmmaking. She fulfilled her usefulness to this movie.
Yeah, they really didn't give her much, but she was never going to have much of a role.
There's not a lot. It's nothing very extraordinary about what she was doing.
No, I mean the whole bedroom scene when she was like, she was holding her own in that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, outside of that.
But the physical comedy in that belonged to Peter Sellers.
Yeah.
Absolutely belonged to Peter Sellers. But I don't know if I got anything else to say about this one. I was a little disappointed. It does, again, silver lining on here, it makes me want to watch Shot in the Dark.
Yeah. Hey, maybe we should both watch Shot in the Dark at some point and review that one.
Yeah. So but we have many more comedies coming up throughout the month of September, though.
Yes.
Stuff that we actually had to look up and go, we didn't cover that one?
Yeah. Next one I knew that we didn't cover, but the two after that, I was like, I thought we covered those.
Yeah. So you'll just have to wait till next week to find out what next week's blind spot comedy is going to be. But I hope you really enjoyed this. I'd love to know what are your thoughts on the Pink Panther 1963. Leave a polite comment below. If this is your first time watching the channel, hi, thank you. We do this every week, so make sure that you check in, subscribe, give us a thumbs up too. It helps us in the algorithm. All that fun stuff. Also, Mike and I host a little podcast called Geek Salad. You can check that out wherever you get your podcast. Stitcher, iTunes. God, I said Stitcher again. Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. We are there.
After like 8 years of saying Stitcher and now not being able to say Stitcher anymore.
Yeah, I know.
Literally,
it's weird. It's weird. You can also check out the full audio of our podcast here on YouTube as well as the episodes are released. If you want to follow us on the socials, we are at Facebook at Geek Salad Podcast and on Twixter, Blue Sky, and Threads at Geek Salad Radio. And before I wrap, I want to, today is Thursday, August 31st. I want to throw a very happy birthday out to a very good friend of the podcast, a great supporter, and an occasional guest on our podcast, Miss M from the Verbal Diorama Podcast. We love you. We hope that you had a great birthday, and we will hopefully be collaborating with you very, very soon. So I think that's about all we got to say here. So Anyway, Mike, until next time, I'm Andy.
I'm Mike.
Go forth and be nerdful. We'll talk to you later.